Okay. Hey everyone, it's Ricky's Rock and Reviews, and I'm here with the great Justin Veart. He's the writer of Quest Off, and he has taken his time to graciously be on the channel and answer some questions and stuff. So, Justin, say hi to everyone and let people know a little bit about Quest Off.
Hello. So happy to be on this channel. I think it's a great channel, and I'm excited about where it's going. Questoff is my debut novel, part of a series I'm writing, which is a comedic fantasy. Which essentially, I sat down and wondered, is it possible to write a sitcom novel? And this is my attempt at it.
That's cool. Very, very cool. I read the book and I reviewed the book. I have a review on Instagram and a review on my YouTube channel here. But I really loved it. You got like 4 or 5 characters that are all kind of vying for some treasure and trying to get out of each other's way. And it's just very humorous and really funny. So
Thank you.
I really love the book. So I kind of wanted to ask you, when did you first started getting this idea for the book? Like, how did this come to fruition
Mm.
in your mind?
Ideas are such a strange thing, aren't they? Like how they happen. I think I was sitting and watching sitcoms during COVID. Like I was just like kind of catching up on all the shows that everyone recommended I watch. And I was like, I'm really enjoying this format. It's a really popular format, but my creative outlet is mostly in writing. And I was like, I wonder if it's possible to write a sitcom in a novel. And so I sat down brainstorming how that would look. And I've been writing for a long time, but never really published anything. So this was kind of like my chance to go, hey, let's like put some skin in the game. Let's like not just dream about it. Let's see if we can do it. So yeah, sort of brainstorm my way into the story that we have now. Yeah.
Very, very cool. So I immediately need to ask you because in surfing some of your reels on Instagram, by the way, you have a really cool Instagram. I think everyone should go check it out because you talk
Awesome.
about writing tips, you talk about, just anything that's on your mind and kind of what goes into fueling your creative process, which is really cool. So anybody who's interested in writing or who's interested in comedic fantasy in general should definitely check it out. But
Oh, thank you.
leads to my question because I've seen you on your reels mention how this book is a book for people who don't like to read. So I kind of wanted to
Yeah.
know what you meant by that when you say that.
Yeah. So a lot of my friends, we all like loved reading, and then they fell away from reading. I think people have kids or they get kind of absorbed in their jobs and they fall away from reading, myself included.
Yeah.
And as I found reading again, I thought, look, I love this medium. How can I think about the future, think about whether books will always be forever? And I don't know, I just tried to write for a future target audience. So I think books of the past were great and they're great and they're entering into this canon era. But then I'm like, well, if I want to get readers for the future, I got to think about what a future reader looks like. And short form media and attention spans have changed a lot. Um, my
Yeah.
wife's got ADHD, so like I'm kind of aware. But she loves reading, but just trying to find a way to go. Okay, this is not something that I've done before in my part. I write for a hobby, so this was a challenge for me because I'm like, I'm going to try and write a short form media novella, punchy, fast paced, and try and immerse someone as quickly as possible. So it's the idea was how to get someone who doesn't like reading or who has lost time to read to give them a book that they can just immerse themselves into almost immediately. That was the goal, anyway, so that they can just find themselves lost in a book again, and hopefully they can find all books enjoyable like I do. So that's good.
Ah, okay, okay. I know what you mean now. That makes sense, especially when you kind of talk about a sitcom because sitcoms are only 22 minutes in length each episode. So
Yeah,
there you go. I kind of see what you mean. There's like little vignettes of things happening throughout each chapter, and it kind of all kind of melts together and makes a bigger story. But the pacing in the book is just like pitch perfect because
oh,
you know
thank you.
you just keep the story moving with all these like scenarios that are happening, and I'm just like, whoa, like there's some stuff that I was just not expecting at all. A scene involving a jailbreak, which, oh my gosh, the way that jailbreak ends, My
Yeah,
jaw's on the floor, honestly. I was like, what the heck just happened?
yeah, man. That's a good reaction. I think I wanted a little bit of shock factor. Yeah. So I like hearing that, to be honest. I'll be that scene was a lot darker. I had to tone it down. I'll be honest. When I read through it again, I had to. I go, this is not fitting, so I had to tone it down a bit. So
I thought it was cool. It kept me on my toes because I'm like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen after this?
yeah,
But
that was
very
good.
cool. I also wanted to ask, how long did it take you to write Quest Off?
Oh man, that's a great question. It, I think it took me 2 years and just a bit, 2 years and 3 months. I think, yeah,
Oh
to
man,
write.
that's
It took a
dedication.
while. A few things cropped up that got in the way, and I write as a hobby. I know people can smash out books, and I respect them for that. But I'm very much I have a plot, and I scheme every chapter, and I kind of have it all in my mind, and then I just find the time to write it. And I've got 4 kids, and I've got
Wow.
full-time job, and so I just like find the moments. But in
Mhm.
saying that, now that I got this book out there, I'm writing the sequel, and
Yeah,
I'm I'm
can't
over
wait.
yes, I'm over halfway. I'm like close to finishing that, and that's taken a lot less time because I'm doing a lot less world building and plotting of the whole thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's getting quicker, if that makes any sense.
Okay, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like exercise. I've always heard, you just like keep using the muscle and it just gets stronger and stronger, which I kind of understand what you're talking about too, because I know for me, it's really important that my hobbies stay hobbies and they don't become a job or work
Yeah,
so that I don't end up hating it. So,
yeah.
it taking 2 years and all that, I think that's probably what will happen to me if I ever start to write a book as well. I'm just going to take my time with it. But
I think
I
so.
mean,
You got to enjoy it.
yeah, well, it like the fruits of your labor is right here. This is an awesome book. Everyone needs to read this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Um, I also wanted to ask who was the toughest character for you to write? Because there's so many different characters here.
Oh man, that's a great question. I think I guess there's two characters that I find that I stressed over. So one was the female character. So I'm a dude, obviously. And so
Oh,
writing the female character, I always take so much care so that it could be relatable to a female. I don't want to just write a female character and I read it to pick it up and go, this has clearly been written by a man, which I've had sometimes. I've read books that were written by female authors and gone, is this what you think men are like? Is this how you think how inner dialogue works? And so because of that mild judgment that I have, I guess I was afraid that people would feel that way. So I spend a lot of time on Isla the dwarf. There's like a lot of time on her character, all her scenes, just trying to get them in a balance of what I think a female would enjoy reading in a comedy like a comedy setting, and I actually have gotten a lot of positive feedback from females because apparently she does do that. So that was nice. So that was a lot of pain that it seems to have turned into a reward. And the other one was Mary the thief, who he's not that funny, but like it's a comedy of errors, but I'm just trying to like get him to be more interesting because he helped me drive the story. So that yeah, that was the two characters I pained over. So
okay. Yeah. Okay, so on Mary, I thought the funniest parts of the book was when like he was interacting with other characters and he's got like an arm sticking out of the barrel and stuff and like I could just picture the characters just like staring at him and looking at him. And a lot of the times he doesn't know what to say, so he's just standing there like in a barrel. It was just hilarious. And I really liked the dwarf character. I thought she was really strong and a real badass. And she was kind of like the wild card where I didn't know what was gonna happen every time she was on the page. So that was really cool.
that makes me feel happy. She's a wild card.
So a lot of things happen in here, like a lot of intricate things happen. I kind of described like there's kind of like a jailbreak. There's kind
Mm.
of like this. this fire as well. So I kind of wanted to ask you, was there any set piece that you had in your head before you even started writing the book where you're like, okay, I gotta have this in my book before you
Mm.
even started writing it, or thinking of it ahead before it even got down to the paper?
Well, actually, so that's really interesting. So when I started, it was meant to be one book, and I had it in my head. It's this one book, and I think it was in the shower, and I thought, what would be funny is if it's just in the town, and they keep trying to leave, but it just perpetually gets like stopped. And I thought it was funny. And I've had like one of my beta readers found that infuriating, and they hated that part of the story. But I was like, it's meant to be kind of like a joke within a joke, I suppose. But that idea birthed into me going, it'd be fun to write a series where I look at some classic tropes of fantasy and I just make each book in that setting. So the first one, Questoff, is in a little fantasy town, and then the next book afterwards, which is a pun, that's set in the woods, and that's like a lot of magic in that. Like you learn a lot about magic in the woods, and then after that they go to the Dwarvish kingdom, and that's all in the mountains. And then after that, they go into the seas to the Dinnerman Spy. So I started trying to like break it down. So that wasn't my plan from the outset. But when I was writing it, I thought I can get my pacing if I just break it into these settings. So
Man,
I did that.
that sounds super cool. Like where it's going, it just sounds. I can't wait.
Yeah. I'm excited for you to read it because you've been so encouraging. Your review is so good. Like all my like friends who've read it, and some of my readers on TikTok, they've like reached out to me to say, "Hey, this guy's review is awesome." I was like, "Reach out to him, send him your books. He's so good at it." So
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's all testament to you and your work, man. I just really enjoyed it. It was so cool, and I just like to hear the way your mind works. So it's a real treat to have you on the channel.
awesome.
Um, let's see, what else did I want to ask you? Oh, so the title. I know it can always be difficult to come up with a good title.
Uh,
So what made you say Quest Off and this is the title?
that is a great question. So this is a real background. This is a really background, just exclusive for your channel. I like making board games as like a hobby as well. Like I make board games and we play them with my family or my friends, which sounds strange. I've never like published any of them, but it's like a fun mechanic in my mind. And I made a game called Quest Off, which is meant to be a play on um, like kind of like F off or like I'm pissed off, or like and there was actually four pieces that you could play as, and they were like a merchant, a hunter, a a knight, or a thief. That was like the four pieces you could play as, and that kind of helped drive my idea for the story. If you can see that now, but that game was meant to be like just all fighting each other for the quests, and that story, as I was creating it, I was like, oh, this is kind of a race for the same thing. It's a race towards Dinnerman Spire. Let's like make it. Let's steal that concept of like F off, pissed off, quest off, like trying to like a bit of a showdown. Like it's a you know how sometimes we use off as like a word to describe like it's like a race. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. So it stuck in my head. I couldn't get it out, and so I was like, I'm just going to go with quest stuff, which I'm happy with because I feel like it's unique and
Yeah,
captures
yeah.
a lot of the essence. So yeah,
It reminded me of the story kind of reminded me, I kind of compared it to Rat Race meets Shrek and Monty Python. So
yeah,
so I think it's very fitting.
yeah. No, I appreciate it. That was a great comparison. I was like, oh man, I can't believe anyone would ever compare me to these like giants of comedy. Yeah, that's good. I'll take that. Thanks, Ricky.
It's true, it's true. And I kind of wanted to I'm curious to see, who do you think you are most like in your book out of all these characters?
That's a great. You got some great questions, Ricky. This is awesome. So I have this theory as an author, and I don't know if other authors share it, but if you don't put a bit of yourself into each character, then you won't buy into them and they won't be organic. So I think the time that I started writing Quest Off was actually a really low point in my life. Like COVID was happening and a lot of other things in my life was happening at that time. And so I was very much deconstructing my whole entire personality. And I think getting the worst parts and the best parts of myself out on a table, just in life, and looking at them and then kind of turning them into characters. So there's a little bit of me in every character, or else I don't include them in the story. If I don't feel like I connect with a character, so like even the knight Wernet who's having existential crisis, I kind of like, I mean, I relate to that, being quite depressed at that time and just thinking of the world in that sense. But then also being like Quaylen, this like wizard who's just fed up with everyone else's stupidity. I'm a high school teacher full time, so I can kind of
Oh.
relate. I can relate. So like it's just like getting a one attribute and then exploding it. So it doesn't become me, but I just pick apart my own attributes and then I explode them into a character. I don't know if that's the answer, but I feel like every author should do that, or else you don't connect. You're just imagining what someone would feel like. Whereas
Yeah.
I hope to kind of get deeper and go, actually, if I was only that part of myself, this is probably what I would be thinking. So that's how I approach it.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I can see your point about making sure that everything is really authentic, because there's just some way that a reader can intuit that something is phony or not. I see what you
Yeah,
mean by that. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Um, so I kind of wanted to pivot a little bit away from Quest Off necessarily and kind of
yeah.
just ask you a little bit more about you as a writer and kind of what makes you a creative person. So I kind of wanted to ask, just in general, who are some of your favorite authors?
I love Terry Pratchett.
Okay.
I don't know if you've read him. He's
I
a
don't think
comedian.
so.
He writes Discworld books, and
Okay.
they're comedic fantasies, and he's the master of it. But my favorite book is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Also, I don't know if
Classic.
you've read that. That's
Classic.
amazing. It's such a great book. He's very inspirational to me. And at the moment, I'm reading an excellent book, which I recommend to everyone that I see, which is called Name of the Wind, um, by
Ooh.
Patrick Rothfuss. Not a comedy. It's just a really well written fantasy. Um, so yeah, if I was to name drop, I'd think Terry Pratchett, Douglas Adams, and then Patrick Rothfuss, I think, is the author of this book I'm reading at the moment. I can't put it down, but that's as of today. I love this guy. So,
Okay. Very cool. I'm gonna have to check them out because I haven't heard of them, but I mean, that's part of the reason why I like talking to so many different types of people and authors and stuff like that, is because it just opens up the door for other things that I've never heard of. So that's very cool.
yeah,
Um, it seems like you're really hooked and you're really into this fantasy genre as
yeah.
well. Do you ever break out of the genre, or you always stay fantasy?
Um, I do not like I read a lot of nonfiction. As I get older and more boring and a parent, I suppose, I read a lot of nonfiction.
Oh,
Just
okay.
kind of like just to help with life, I suppose, because life becomes like busy. But
Mhm.
I have always gravitated towards fantasy, and I've been writing since I was 5. I think I figured out the other day. I was like, since I was 5 years old, I've been writing as a hobby, and I had teachers really encouraging me in that space, all the way through primary school and high school and beyond. And even in uni, when I was training to be a teacher, I was getting encouraged to do my authoring by my lecturers who found some of my short stories. But yeah, it's always fantasy that I find the most comfortable to write in. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know. It just resonates with me, so I stick to it. So I do read others. I read some sci-fi and some historical fiction, but I always come back to fantasy. So
That's very cool, and it's interesting to me because uh, I haven't actually read that much fantasy. I have Lord of the Rings down here. It's still in the package. The book, what do you call it? Let me pull it out here. It's the box set, and
Oh,
it's still in
oh
the in
man.
the packaging. But I've been
Wow.
trying to kind of, I guess, get better at reading fantasy, so I can have my mind opened up by this classic over here.
But
Uh,
but you do comics, do you?
yes, and
And so
I really love Thor, and I've been reading some stories with Heimdall, and that's awesome stuff, man. It's awesome.
yeah. So I like reading graphic novels and graphic comic novels. As well, I go to the library. That's pretty much the section I go to, and I just borrow
Mhm.
comics. Um, and Batman. I'm just so fixated on Batman at the moment. All of his
Yeah.
yeah. So what you're reading, I think, is also interesting. So that is a genre I go into, like superheroes. So that's I hope to one day write a superhero novel. So
Dang, I think it would be kick-ass. But I
that's
mean, you got Quest off first, and you got to finish that story first.
yeah, okay.
Or if you need to take a break, kind of reminds me of Chris Nolan, how, he would do a Batman movie, then he'd do something completely different, then go back to Batman, do something completely different, and
Yeah,
then finish off his
yeah,
trilogy.
yeah.
Um,
I'm just gonna get Christoph out of my head, to be honest. So if I get it out of my head, then I'll focus on the next thing.
okay,
Ideas crop in, and you have to just tell them later, later, later. I got this thing. I gotta get out. So
that makes sense. So you kind of mentioned earlier that at 5 years old you started writing. Is that when you kind of discovered that you had a kind of a knack for writing, or when did you feel like, hey, maybe I really do have a talent for this?
that's um. How do I answer that? That's interesting. Um, you're very good at this. You put me on the spot. I love this. So when I went into school, like I'll say, I think just fortunately, I don't really know why because I've asked my mum and she has no information in this regard. But I could read and write quite early, and I'm not sure how or why. I just had an interest, I suppose. And then I remember being sat down in my like first day of school, and me and this other student got sat on a little table while everyone else was doing the alphabet in a circle. And I remember they said, "Oh, why don't you write us a story?" And then now I'm a teacher. I think they were just trying to gauge what I could do, but I never considered in my mind that you could write a story. I never even read stories, and so I remember being 5 and I have a vague memory of just thinking, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that." So I wrote a story about a cat going to a deli. I remember writing a story about a cat going to a deli, and I gave it to the teacher, and the teacher looked at it and they looked really shocked by it. And I thought I'd done something wrong because the teacher didn't look very happy. And then they got the other teacher along and they looked at it and they both looked at me like, "Did you come up with this story?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I felt like I was going to get told off. But what that was is them being shocked that a 5 year old, I just entered school and I wrote a story. And so that shock really put me off story writing a little bit. But I went home. I became a closet story writer, I should say. Like I was like, don't let adults see your stories because they react like this. Like in hindsight, I think they were like encouraging me, but I felt like I'd done something wrong. So I went home and I just wrote stories in secret in my room. Now that I had like unlocked this new thing, and then when I got into later school, like in my early years of school, like sort of later part of school, I had a teacher. He was great. He's like my English teacher. It's like you don't need to do the normal homework. I just want you to write me a story. This is every week. He'd ask me to write him a story, and I present him a story every week, and he'd critique it and give it back. And I did no other homework that year except for writing a story for this guy, and he
Wow,
really honed my abilities. Yeah, inspirational. I love this guy,
that's
Mr.
awesome.
Moisley. Yeah, and he just made me think about stories, and then I just continued doing that. I started writing stories in high school for like friend groups, and then yeah, even into uni, I was writing stories, and they were getting shared around. So yeah, but it all started when I was 5, and became a closet writer. So
Wow. So you're a writing prodigy. That's super cool.
oh man, I didn't want the story to sound like that. No, no, no. I'm not, I'm not writing prodigy. I just always just took to it. I just enjoyed it.
So for anyone who hasn't started following you yet, I'm gonna paint a picture. So you have a reel beginning with like some foggy mist and goblets and this like really appropriate fantasy setting all around you. This is your writing room, right? That you've described?
This,
Yeah.
this is my, this is just my house. This is just me, just in a corner.
Wow.
Sorry, I have a tavern
That's
that's in
what
the
I'm
back.
talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That tavern looks like you're
Do you want me to, do you
in
want to
the
go to the
world.
tavern? Do you want to go to the tavern?
Yeah, let's go to the tavern.
Is that right? Let's go live. Hopefully, the internet holds up, so you can go through my whole house. It's all good. We'll just go for a walk. Yeah, I was going to go in the tavern, but the internet's not the best, which just
Ah,
kind of keeps me focused on story writing. So I write normally in my tavern. I hope people are watching this right now going, what the heck is going on? So I'm just like, going
no,
out.
we're getting some Cloverfield like film work in here.
Yeah, going into here. So in here is I don't have candles going or anything. Normally there's candles going, but no, in here is my
Wow.
tavern.
It looks like we just stepped into awful. Uh-oh. Yeah, yeah, the internet kind of dropped for a second there. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I don't know if you saw it for a second.
I did. Yeah, we did see it for a second. It just looks super
Yeah,
cool.
that's where I normally write. So it's good. Gets me away, gets me immersed. I just set it up because I play a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons. I set it up for that, and then it just turns into a really good writing spot.
It looks super cool. Everyone should go look at it because it looks like really intricate. How long did it take you to set that up?
Um, I as soon as I moved into this house. Oh, here's an interesting story. I don't know if you like. Do you play Dungeons and Dragons?
No, but it always really interested me because it's just so immersive. I just love something that's so creative and immersive. So
Yeah. So
fascinating.
the story that goes that when we were looking at this house, my wife and I looked at this house that we're in now. We saw the garage section, and we said, "Oh, let's move into this garage section. I can set up a tavern here." And she's a history teacher, so we'll set up a medieval tavern, and then we can have people over for drinks and stuff. And anyway, the guy who was selling us the house was he was super into D&D, like more than I dabble in it. He's super into D&D, and I was like, oh look, we want to set this house up with a D&D spot. He's like, oh, I love D&D. I was like, how much like is the person asking for? And he wouldn't tell me the price. He wouldn't tell me, he's judging it as they do. And I said, roll for persuasion, which if you're a D&D, like, you know what that means. And he paused and he's like, I've in all my years at this job, I've never had anyone roll for persuasion. And so then, so then he just, I think he was so shocked by that that when we put our offer in on the house, anyone else who wanted to come and see the house, he didn't return their calls at all, and he ended up losing his job over it. I'm pretty sure.
Oh no.
But we got the house for a really good price, and it's all because he's like, oh, because you rolled that really good persuasion roll, and I was like, yeah, that's
Oh
awesome.
man, that's so cool. That's
So
awesome. Sometimes we get little nuggets like that in life where it benefits or behooves you to like to kind of tell people what you're into or kind of reveal a
yeah,
little bit about yourself because it definitely opens up opportunities.
yeah, it does. Yeah, and you just moved in. Have you just moved into a new home?
Yeah, I did. I got this library set up. I mean,
Yeah,
over here we have a good amount of books, and I have on this section that you can't see is pretty uh anemic when it comes to books. I need to fill
yeah,
that in as well. But I mean, that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have. That means I can buy more books and my wife won't get mad at me. So
yeah. Because she wants the aesthetic of the room to be great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I have a man cave on it's I have a detached garage and on top I have a man cave where I have like all my 4K movies, all my graphic novels, comic books, action figures, and I even have a
Wow.
shower up there and a toilet. So pretty cool.
Oh, there you go. So
Yeah.
You can just live up there. That's awesome. So I got a better you tavern. You've got a whole man cave.
Yeah. That's just how we roll, man.
That's cool. And can I don't know if I'm going to flip it on you a little bit here, but did your wife do the artwork for your review?
For the graphic
The
design,
graphic,
like
yeah,
the it has like the pearls and the lighthouse and all that.
yeah,
She
yeah,
created that. I gave her I was like, hey, I really need help with my thumbnails because my thumbnails suck. So for my YouTube channel, my last two thumbnails, I believe, are the ones that she's helped me with, and they came out so awesome. And it's super cool because I have fun telling her. I tell her like a little bit about what's going on in the book. I'm like, hey, there's a
yeah,
guy stuck in a barrel. There's a wizard who just turned into a ghost. There's this like treasure buried or hidden in this lighthouse like
yeah.
tower. And I just give her those details. That's it. And then boom, she came up with that.
That's amazing. Even my wife was like, "Who's doing this design?" I was like, "I." So I got to shout out to your wife, the design that she did with very little information that you just said.
Very cool.
So
Yeah,
top
thank
notch.
you. She'll appreciate that.
I
She'll
want to
definitely
reach out to
appreciate that.
her for future. I've got all like my books designed at the moment because I have a style you can see, but in the future, I'm going to reach out for her because she has got a knack of
Oh
capturing the book.
man, 100%. Please do. It'll make her day. She has so much fun doing it. So that would be awesome. Yeah, always feel free. And anyone who's listening too. She's my wife on Instagram. Um, but what else was I gonna ask you? Um, how often do you read?
uh, Once again, it's as often as I can write. Probably in the evenings. I read a little bit more than I write. So in the evenings before we all go to bed, my entire family, my kids, my wife, and I, we all sit on the couch and we all crack open a book and we all read.
That's awesome.
And inevitably, someone will pause everyone and say, "Hey, listen to this," and then we all sit and listen to this really well crafted sentence or paragraph or scene, which ranges from Captain Underpants to um, yeah, Name of the Wind
Goals.
or
Goals. That's how I want my family to be when my son comes. I've been reading to him in the womb because he can hear
yeah.
now, and I just hope we're like that when the time comes. That's very cool.
I think it's
Um,
great to read them in the womb, like get them used to that voice and that they respond. All my kids love reading, and yeah, used to read to them from the moment they had ears.
Absolutely. Justin, just letting you know, we have about 5 minutes left before this meeting timer comes off. I've been having a
Yep.
blast, but I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and these are going to be kind of like rapid fire because I have a cool little thing at the end that I think you might love or might hate. So,
Ah,
so here
I'm
we
excited.
go. Here we go. Physical versus ebooks.
Uh, it depends on the accessibility.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair because sometimes you got to get stuff from the library on Libby, and that's the only way you can
yeah,
read it. So, yeah,
yeah.
I feel you on that. What's your drink of choice or habit that you like to pair with reading? For example, I love to drink coffee while I read or write. So, what about you?
Yeah. Whiskey.
Hey, you're just like Hunter S. Thompson or Mark Twain. They loved Old Crow whiskey when they were writing.
Yeah, I gotta have a whiskey with me. Yeah,
Very cool. What's your favorite color?
teal.
Teal. Oh, okay. And what's your favorite word?
Unfathomable.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna have my ear. I mean, I'm gonna have my eyes peeled for when I see that word in the books.
It has appeared. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna share my screen here because I always feel like when I read, I have like a cinematic hallucination when I'm reading.
Mm.
So I kind of come up with a cast for Quest Off if a movie were to happen. So I'm gonna
I
share
was
my
thinking.
screen and I'm gonna see if you say yay or nay, okay?
Okay, this is great.
Okay, here we go. Here we have my choice for Mary, the thief.
Great. I love that.
Bradley
Yep.
Cooper.
Yay.
For Quaylen, the wizard, I have Joseph Sweeney from 12 Angry Men.
Yes. Yes. That's like, oh wow, this is clever.
And for the dwarf, I have Christina Hendricks. She's
Wow. I
tall,
mean,
but you just have to kind of shrink her down, kind of like Elijah Wood in
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Lord of the
she's
Rings.
a lot prettier than I imagined Islet being. I actually, no offense, I'm about to follow it up with an actress, and I don't want that person to be offended because I'm the star. Melissa McCarthy is who I had in my head.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's a great choice. Yeah.
She's just a little easier on the eyes.
Yeah, yeah. She's-
Here I have the knight, Sir Wernet, Eric Bana.
he's an Australian. Like, yeah, represent
Yeah,
Australian.
I
Uh
always liked that. He's an underrated actor to me.
he is so underrated. He's so good in the Hulk, isn't he? The Hulk movie.
I love
Uh
it. Love it.
he would be so funny. That's actually I have no I want someone who would be like a young Alan Rickman is in my head, but I have no idea who that would be.
Oh,
Eric Bana would
that'd be
be
cool.
Eric Bana would be so good. This is clever. I'm actually loving this.
And this is kind of controversial. I have Roman Polanski as the inventor.
I like how you're saying that so you don't spoil anything. Yeah, yeah, he would be great.
I just
That's
enjoyed
actually
his performance in Rush Hour 3, and I just
Rush
kept
Hour. Yeah,
picturing
yeah.
that.
He
Um,
would be great.
and then as the Knight's brother, I have Jim Carrey. Because I think he would be cool at playing it straight, kind of against type. I thought that would be very
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
I mean, I would
Sir
be honored
Vincent,
if
right?
yeah, yeah. So Vincent, who features a lot more in the second book, he cracks me up. I would love to see Jim Carrey play him. That would be incredible.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
hilarious. That would be.
I'm
Jim
glad you
Carrey is like
enjoyed that.
a hero of mine. So like, if he appears, I'm happy. So
I'm glad you enjoyed that. We're running out of time. I'm sorry to cut it off short, but
that's all
Justin,
right.
thank you so much for being on the channel. And everyone, go out and get Quest Off. It's on Amazon right now. I'll put a link in the description. And this isn't the last that we'll talk to you, I'm sure.
Yeah, let's do this again. That was fun.
Thank you so much, Justin. Have a great night.
Thanks, Ricky. See you later. See you, everyone. Bye.